But in 1984, I remember walking around London, like it was all white. It was all white.
But you go outside of London now, but now it's totally changed.
It went from, I read this in Andrew Sullivan's column, it went from, in 50 years, it went from 86% white to 36% white. Now, this is not a complaint. See, if we were conservatives, this would be like a lament. Great.
It's a fact.
It's a fact,
it's a fact.
And it's a happy fact.
And if you can't discuss it.
Just don't tell me we're living in a year we're not living in. We're living in the year when London is mostly people of color.
Yes, it is.
And I'm applauding it.
Yeah.
Happy for you. Happy for it.
Okay.
But let's live in the year we're living in.
You go to Windsor Castle, okay? And the town, of course, is called Windsor. And it used to be, when I was a kid, all English tea shops with china, and everybody used to go there for afternoon tea. And you'd go to Windsor Park and watch some polo. And now you go around there, there's no more fucking tea shops.
Right.
None of that.
Right.
It's Arabic restaurants.
Right.
It's Jamaican restaurants.
Right.
It's Chinese. It is a complete and utter melting pot. And it's great.
And it's great.
It's great.
And there's always going to be some people, and we can't hate them for it, who remember the tea shop, and that's their memories of their youth and where they first fell in love or whatever. And so they're going to be nostalgic for it. Mm-hmm. And that you can't hate them because they're like, I don't recognize my country anymore. Because in the Brexit vote, there was a lot of that. People said that. People who lived in England their whole life. And the old village green England's like...
The traditional things have gone.
Right.
But we still have the royal family that is way too traditional. Right. It's way too. I love them, but they're way too traditional. It needs to cut back on the shit.
My message to those people is always, sorry, but that's life on Earth. Things change.
Nothing stays the same.
Nothing stays the same.
If you stay the same, you're left behind.
Now, you don't have to like the change, but you can't just stand there in the middle of the street and go, stop. I am standing athwart change. It just doesn't work that way. Change is going to come, and it's going...
And I am your host, Robert Jordan. Everyone, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Okay, guys, I'm one of the few people who actually documented this war on white people with the use of mass migration. I'm one of the few people who have actual documentation. I've been doing this for quite some time. And I've been using the word war and warfare to describe this, because that's what this is. Now, here's one of the earlier articles I started with. And this was back in 2018. It says, British white people set to become a minority in Birmingham, says report. This is Birmingham, England, of course. Now, I'm telling you this because I want you to see how long-range this plan was and how diabolical it was, or is, because it's still ongoing. But it says, report also says nearly 50,000 residents in the city cannot speak English. Doesn't all this sound familiar, people? British white people will soon become the minority in Birmingham, while nearly 50,000 residents in the city cannot speak English. Again, this is almost 10 years ago, okay? This is 2018. There are thought to be residents from nearly 200 countries living in Birmingham, which has been described as super diverse in the city's new cohesion strategy. But while there are recognized benefits to multicultural societies such as trade links, the city's varied ethnicity has been identified as a major factor in social segregation and community tension. The draft policy, which is due to be tabled before the council's cabinet today, states that 42% of people in Birmingham classify themselves as non-British white in the 2011 census. That was an increase of 12% from the 2001 survey, and the rate continues by the time of the next census in 2021. More than half the city's 1.2 million plus population will be from an ethnic minority. And you'll see, people, this is the same everywhere, and it has been documented.
Not only our Muslim communities, but African communities, Asian communities, Hispanic communities, and the wave still continues. It's not going to stop, nor should we want it to stop. As a matter of fact, it's one of the things I think we can be most proud of. So there's a second thing in that black box, an unrelenting stream of immigration, non-stop. Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
All right, here's another article from my archives. This is from 2019. The U.S. white majority will soon disappear forever. You see, this is all predicted, people. This is all planned out. This is why I describe it as warfare. Since the settlement of Jamestown in 1607 and the start of the colonial period, the U.S. has been predominantly white. But the white share of the U.S. population has been dropping from little under 90% in 1950 to 60% in 2018. And it will likely drop below 50% in another 25 years. White nationalists want America to be white again, but this will never happen. America is on its way to becoming a predominantly non-white country. This is all predicted, people, and all been planned out. We're just not paying attention. The people in this country is not paying attention. It's something we'll all pay for, no matter what race we're in.
Voluntary matching mechanism to relocate the refugees. The EU can't coerce member states to accept refugees they don't want, or force refugees to go where they are not wanted. And we cite Canada that sets a standard. And this comparison shows how far the EU has to go. Sixth, the EU must offer far greater support to countries outside its borders that host a large number of refugees. And also, it must be more generous to Africa. It can't use development funds to serve its own needs. It has to offer a genuine grand bargain, which means creating jobs in African countries where migrants originate, which would reduce the number of people that want to migrate to Europe. And the final pillar is to create a welcoming environment for economic migrants. All the evidence shows that migrants can contribute significantly to innovation and development if they are given a chance to do so. Now,
okay, guys, I know I'm going really fast and I'm skipping over a lot of information, but I'm trying to get us caught up to speed real fast, okay, because I don't want this thing to go on too long. But anyway, this is another old article. This is stuff I've had for years, okay? This is 2017, and they're talking about George Soros' financial ties in all these organizations. Here's a complete list of 200 of them. This is 2017, people, okay? So, 8 years later, that number is far greater. But anyway, here's a complete list of 200 U.S. organizations that have financial ties to Nazi war criminal George Soros. Both George Soros and his Open Society Foundation provide funding directly or indirectly to all these groups, most of which actively seek to overthrow America's Democratic Republic. Now, one of the first ones up is, of course, the ACLU. Okay? That's who you're fighting right now. And you're not just fighting them, you're fighting all 200 of these groups. Because then if you go into this deeper, you'll see all the immigration groups. You'll see all the refugee groups. This is what you're fighting, people. Okay? You're not just fighting the Supreme Court, you're not just fighting all these people. You're fighting thousands of groups with millions of dollars behind them. And I don't think you even see this. Most people wouldn't even know this. This is how I know we're in such bad shape.
The left's dark money network features George Soros and his Open Society Foundations, the Tides Foundation, and the network of nonprofits established by Arabella Advisors. The left's dark money network has deep ties to USAID, which has rightly received renewed scrutiny under Doge and after Elon Musk shined a light on it. The Soros-founded nonprofit has a long history with USAID. In 2001, the Soros Foundations Network, which became Open Society, listed USAID among its donor partners. Open Society and USAID have jointly funded the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, a news outlet that attacked conservatives for, you guessed it, criticizing Soros.
All right, the next one up is Alejandro Mayorkas. This is the person who I nicknamed the Field Marshal. He was the boots on the ground guy. He was the one who actually got the millions of people into the country. He controlled the logistics between the foreign countries, the foreign leaders, the NGOs, the transportation, and so forth. He was the one who made everything happen. But let me tell you this, people. You guys will never see any of these people go to jail or be indicted or anything like that, because I'm getting ready to show you that our whole judiciary has been captured. And Trump would know that. And it would be a waste of time indicting these people because it wouldn't go anywhere. Okay? Everything has been corrupted. But anyway, here's the Jewish Telegraph, and this goes back to 2020 when he was first nominated. But anyway, Biden nominates Alejandro Mayorkas, Latino Jew, who said Jews face heightened threat, as Homeland Security Secretary. The Cuban native and son of Holocaust survivor mother said that anti-Semitism threat keeps him up at night. President-elect Joe Biden announced the nomination of Alejandro Mayorkas, a Latino Jew who emphasized the heightened threat facing American Jews, as his Homeland Security Secretary on Monday. Mayorkas, 60, the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security under Barack Obama, was born in Cuba to a Cuban Jewish father and Romanian Jewish mother. His mother survived the Holocaust. As Deputy Secretary, Mayorkas worked closely with Jewish groups and spoke often about the specific threats facing American Jews. You see, people, they all work together and they all pass the torch. And this is how this works. And I'm going to show you how they work this. Speaking in 2016 to the annual Washington Conference of the Orthodox Union about nonprofit security grants, Mayorkas said, the need is most acute in the Jewish community because of the ascension of anti-Semitism and hate crimes we see. Mayorkas grounded his concern in his background and his upbringing. Among the things that keep me up at night, he said at the time, was the threat to my community, the Jewish community. I come from a tradition of lack of security instilled in me as a very young person, said Mayorkas, whose parents had moved to Cuba after marrying, then the United States following the revolution there. Mayorkas is a board member of HIAS, the Jewish Immigration Advocacy Group. It's the biggest immigration group in the world, people. It's the one who gets all the immigrants into the country. They make the money off of it, and specifically, they pay all the other immigrant groups. You have to do your research. I'm going to show you a clip on HIAS.
There are places where being who you are is a punishable offense. There are places where you might be sentenced to death because you chose to live. These places have many names, but the ones who flee have one: refugee. And it is in the name of the refugee that HIAS has dedicated itself for the last 130 years. Created in the name of the Jewish people, for the Jews who fled Tsarist Russia and Soviet Russia, the Jews who fled the death camps of Europe, the Jews exiled from places as varied as Algeria and Cuba and Iran. 4.5 million rescued and resettled so far. When they said, "Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. We were the ones at the docks, helping them breathe free. And we are still at the docks, and the deserts, and the cities and camps and lands where people no longer have a home in their homeland. Only now it's a farmer from Darfur, a shop owner from Syria, a family from Ukraine, a child from Colombia, a Christian from Iran, a gay man from Uganda. The 60 million souls who still wander the earth in search of sanctuary. Why? Maybe it's because being Jewish means you don't have to be reminded never to forget. Maybe it's because we are called in our most sacred texts to love the stranger. Or maybe it's because as long as there are still places it is a crime to be who you are, there is still a mandate for us to be who we are. Highest for the refugee.
Next up is Norm Eisen. This is the guy who has mastered the art of lawfare. In fact, he literally wrote the book on it. He is also an untouchable. He's one of those people that we will never see indicted. We'll never see him in jail. He's that well connected, that powerful. But he has done so much damage to the judiciary in the United States. In fact, he has completely destroyed it. It has no credibility because of people like him. But the people who've done the most work on him was Revolver, the publication Revolver that we're looking at right now. Can't read you the whole article. This was 5 years ago, talking about this guy. And this is who we're dealing with now, people. But 5 years ago, this was done by Revolver, the publication. I'll leave you the link. I'll leave you the link and you can read this thing yourself. But just to close this out, I want you to know this as we proceed. As the man who implemented the David Brock blueprint for suing the president into paralysis and his allies into bankruptcy, who helped mainstream and amplify the Russian hoax, who drafted 10 articles of impeachment for the Democrats a full month before President Trump ever called the Ukraine president in 2018, who personally served as special counsel litigating the Ukraine impeachment, and who created a template for internet censorship of world leaders and a handbook for mass mobilizing racial justice protesters to overturn Democrat election results. There is perhaps no man alive with more decorated resume for plots against President Trump. Indeed, the story of Norm Eisen, a key architect of nearly every attempt to delegitimize, impeach, censor, sue, remove the democratically elected 45th President of the United States, is a tale that winds through nearly every facet of the Color Revolution playbook. There's no pure embodiment of Revolver's thesis that this very same regime change professionals who run color revolutions on behalf of the U.S. government in order to undermine or overthrow alleged authoritarian governments overseas are running the very same playbook to overturn Trump's 2016 victory and preempt a repeat in 2020. To put it simply, what you see is not just the same color revolution playbook run against Trump, but the same people using it against Trump who employed it in a professional capacity against targets overseas. Same people, same playbook. In Norm Eisen's case, the same people, same playbook. Reframe takes an arrestingly literal turn when one realizes that Norm Eisen wrote a classic revolution regime change manual and conveniently titled it The Playbook. I told you people, he literally wrote the book on this stuff. And it gets even worse.
This incredible 16 seconds pulled up by the researcher. Norm Eisen said his good friend, Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, was not corrupt and that John went to the Czech Republic for a week so that they could spend more time working on American rule of law issues together.
John Roberts is not corrupt. I know the Chief Justice well. He stayed when I was ambassador, stayed under my roof, came and spent a week with us. We worked on American and European rule of law issues together.
Did you hear that? John Roberts, while Norm Eisen was the U.S. ambassador to the Czech Republic, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, yes, that John Roberts stayed under Norm Eisen's roof, stayed with him for a week as Norm Eisen and Chief Justice John Roberts rigged the judicial system in Europe, worked on European rule of law issues. Now, again, rule of law is their weasel word phrase for saying it's not a rule of kings where, no one is above the law. So the law has rule. The law rules over you, not man, not a king, not a president. It's all about the law controls all. So if you control the law, if law rules all, and then you have these programs like this John Roberts, Norm Eisen program in the Czech Republic to control the law, then you control everything. So having a program, a rule of law program, sometimes will be called governance programs or anti-corruption programs, but they're all about control over the judges, the prosecutors, the courts, the law schools. So this is what we're running into right now with all these district court judges who are nullifying everything Trump does, blocking him from shutting down agencies, blocking him from firing people. This is what it looks like when you've got these rule of law programs in a foreign country and they try to change their laws or they try to clean up their country. And I actually want to get into some of these documents in a bit here. But now, Norm Eisen lived in a very peculiar place in the Czech Republic. He had a special house. There you go. Prague Palace. Norm Eisen with the former president of the Czech Republic in October 2011. The last palace in the next battle. Norm Eisen tells the epic story of democracy's long victory in Europe through a house's history. 7 years ago, as the new U.S. ambassador to the Czech Republic, again, head of the State Department for all things Czech Republic, Norm Eisen moved into one of Prague's most beautiful homes, a 150-plus room Beaux-Arts mansion with a sweeping curved facade. He soon heard fascinating tales about its previous residents. A German general, one of Czechoslovakia's richest men. Okay, so he stayed in a 150-plus room mansion. So when he goes on and he says,
I know the Chief Justice well.
I know the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, well.
He stayed when I was ambassador, stayed under my roof.
He stayed under my roof. So he stayed in Norm Eisen's 150-room mansion.
Came and spent a week with us. We worked on...
He came and spent a week with us. We worked on...
American and European rule of law issues together.
We worked on American and European rule of law issues. I want to know what exact issues they worked on. What issues, what American and European rule of law issues did Norm Eisen and John Roberts staying at Norm Eisen's house work on for a week? Was it rule of law issues in Romania, in France, obviously in the Czech Republic? Because if you remember, Norm Eisen was effectively doing this like regime change operation through arresting all the political opponents. But he said American and European rule of law issues. I want every single one of these rule of law programs completely declassified. This is one of
as I've stated,
my side.
Far worse than I've described. It seems our whole judiciary has been captured, from the top to the bottom, from Justice Roberts on down. And this is why we're seeing this endless assault, this endless sabotage from the judges against Trump. And I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. In fact, I think things are going to get worse because they're losing. But anyway, this was reported back in March by the Gateway Pundit. And of course, it was disputed, but I believe it because it fits in with everything that I know and how the deep state works. It goes revealed. Chief Justice John Roberts caught an elitist club of judges and lawyers that includes James Boasberg, Beryl Howell, Amit Mehta, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. It goes on to say, investigative journalist Bad Kitty Unleashed reported on Thursday that the Supreme Court Justice Roberts, the same John Roberts I just showed you, is involved in an invite-only club for elite judges in Washington, D.C. The elitist club, American Inns of Court, also includes radical America-hating judges James Boasberg, Beryl Howell, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Amit Mehta. All hard left judges and Trump haters. And those are the ones that we've been seeing who are the most active. John Roberts has been Chief Justice of Supreme Court since 2005. Here are the officers of the court, of this club. The president is Boasberg. The vice president is Ketanji Brown Jackson. The treasurer is Mary Patrice Brown. The secretary is Mehta. The program chair is Barry Boss. The membership chair is Jeffrey Green, and so forth. The Supreme Court Chief Justice is holding meetings with far-left district judges who are running a judicial coup on the current President of the United States. Just think, 2 days ago on Tuesday, Chief Justice Roberts released a statement attacking Donald Trump for calling on these same crooked judges to be impeached. And now we have evidence that John Roberts was in an elitist group with some of these same judges. People, it doesn't surprise me. We were told all this, and we were told all this would happen.
There are those who believe that we are in real time living through an assault on the constitutional order. Do you believe that we are in a constitutional crisis right now?
Yes, our democracy is at risk because Donald Trump shows that he wishes to violate the laws in many, many different ways. The good news here is we did put 235 judges, progressive judges, judges not under the control of Trump last year on the bench, and they are ruling against Trump time after time after time. And we hope that the appellate courts, when it gets up there in the Supreme Court, will uphold those rulings. They restored the money to NIH. They required that 8,000 federal employees have to come back. We're in over 100 lawsuits against them, and we are having a good deal of success.